Welcome to The Author Show, where we present new authors and books. From fiction to self-help and everything in between, you'll find it all here. To watch the TV version of our program, visit authorswebtv.com. That's authorswebtv.com. And now, let the show begin with your hosts, Don McCauley and Danielle Hampson.
Hello and welcome back to the show. This is your host, Don McCauley. Today we're welcoming the program author Henry B. Zimmer, and he is the author of the Enlightened Capitalism Manifesto. Henry is a semi-retired CPA living in Palm Desert, California. Although he's a U.S. citizen, he's lived most of his life in Canada, where he holds a chartered accountant designation. His undergraduate degree is in English, and he prides himself in his communication skills. His business career has spanned the last half-century, and he's written 15 books on Canadian taxation and financial planning, several of which have been bestsellers. Henry, how are you?
I'm fine this morning, Don. Thank you.
Let's start with the big question. Tell us about this book, please.
Well, in 1976, there was a movie called Network, and the famous line came out of it, "I'm mad as hell and I'm not going to take it anymore." So there have been a lot of complaints, even to this very day, about how things are happening in this country. And you've seen Occupy America, you've seen Occupy Wall Street, but nobody has come out with a comprehensive blueprint for reform. And that's exactly what this book is about. It's written in simple language. It's easy for people to follow. You don't necessarily have to read every single chapter. But if there's going to be change, it has to start with a mindset. The people who are listening to this show and are interested in this book, they will find that any changes have to come through a grassroots movement and not from the jaded political people who hold office today, Republican or Democrat.
Who did you write this book for specifically?
I wrote this book in simple language for the 99%, the people who are not the multimillionaires or the billionaires. There are 117 million households in the United States, and there are only a little over 100,000 people who have a net worth over $25 million. And these are the people who control what goes on in this country, and as far as they're concerned, or most of them, everybody else can rot.
So what would you say is the central message, or perhaps the underlying theme that runs throughout the book?
The theme in the book is that we all have a vote, we all have to take an interest in what's going on, and we need leaders who are going to champion change. We need to get off the mindset where we live vicariously through our entertainers and our athletes. It's really amazing, Don, how people will watch a sporting event and hear about a baseball player who signs a $100 million contract, and they don't bat an eyelash. Do they earn $100 million? No, they don't. Very few people do. So it is time for the 99% to make their voices heard.
If you had to choose, what would you say is the most important idea you're sharing in this book that's really going to add value to the reader's life?
The thing that will add value to the reader's life is to take cognizance that all the politicians, Democrat, Republican, they're in the pay, if you will, of the elite 1%, and that we all have our vote, and if we can find about 500, 600 leaders in this country who are willing to make change, then, and they will stand for political office, then a lot of the problems can be solved. So in my book, I deal with the political and financial issues, including banking. I have proposals for job creation and tax reform, healthcare, education, and my most important chapter for the average reader will be a chapter on personal financial planning, effective personal financial planning.
Now, if you could compare this book with any book out there we might already be familiar with, which book would it be and why?
One of the books that motivated me to write the book, this one, is a book by Peter Schweitzer called Throw Them All Out. And this book came out in 2011, and it explains how politicians on both sides of the House, or both sides of Congress and presidents, etc., have profited by virtue of high office to the detriment of their constituents. The other thing that motivated me to write this book, it wasn't a book per se, it was President Obama calling for change. I wrote him a 20-page letter in 2008, and I outlined my proposals for change and the reasons why. I don't just simply say, do this, do that. That doesn't make any sense unless you can give good, hard reasoning. And I got nothing in response until 6 months later when I got a one-page form letter, thank you for your input. And I kind of thought all of a sudden, well, why don't I sit down? I haven't written a book in 20 years. Thank goodness my mind still works. And I sat down last summer, and in the course of 4 weeks, I put this book together.
So, Enlightened Capitalism, is that the same as socialism?
I'm glad you asked that one, Don. Many, many Americans, I've discovered, confuse socialism with communism. Communism is when the state owns everything. I am advocating social responsibility. And social responsibility does not, to me, mean give everything away to those who don't want to work. The reader who reads the book will see that I make some proposals that I actually feel will benefit the very wealthy. For example, I propose the elimination of estate taxes. I don't think that they're necessary. There's an easier way to make sure the wealthy pay their fair share. But I also make proposals when I talk about job creation that nobody should receive something for nothing unless they are physically or mentally handicapped. I suggest that people between 18 and 24 should be required to work on government-sponsored projects, infrastructure projects, unless they are in school or have full-time jobs. I wouldn't force anybody to work, but anybody who isn't willing to do something, as far as I'm concerned, they don't deserve government handouts.
Now, in your book, you mention that you feel that many of America's problems are because of unbridled capitalism. What do you mean by that?
Well, Don, in 1980, President Reagan's advisors prevailed upon him to drop the tax rate for Americans so that the top rate became gradually only 28%. And it was felt that if the movers and shakers got a reduced tax and a higher incentive, there would be a trickle-down effect. They would create jobs, they would bolster the economy, but this didn't really happen. What happened instead was many of our jobs were offshored, and literally millions of manufacturing jobs have been lost. Also, the bankers have taken advantage of people who don't understand how basic planning works. They gave mortgages to everybody who wanted one, and you could live the American dream, they said, and then they just simply packaged these mortgages and sold them. So they made the fees, and then they sold the mortgages, and it didn't make any difference to them whether people had proper credit. And of course, the bubble burst, and lots of people lost their homes, and there are a lot of people struggling. So the people with the financial acumen and the business acumen have ridden roughshod over everybody else, and that is the concept of unbridled capitalism as opposed to enlightened capitalism. My concept is to provide a level playing field for everybody.
Now, you go so far as to suggest changing the way the United States holds presidential elections. Do you think that's really feasible?
That is a very interesting question. The Constitution of the United States was written in 1789. Lots of things changed in 225 years, and I don't think when they decided to have a president and two chambers in Congress that George Washington and Thomas Jefferson realized that there would be times that the president would be in loggerheads with his Congress. And consequently, a lot of compromise takes place for political reasons and not for effective government reasons. So my proposal is a system where the functions of the Senate and the House of Representatives are made different. The representatives would look after domestic issues. The Senate would look after international and foreign relation issues. And my thinking is that the president and vice president can still run for election in a sense as heads of the party, but whatever party forms the majority in the House of Representatives, their leader would become the president. And the president could be changed by the party itself, and if the general public weren't happy with the way the government was being run, of course, there's always another election 4 years down the road to change that. It's a big change, but it represents what I call out-of-the-box thinking. And this is what Americans have to look at. Just because we've done things this way for so many years doesn't mean it has to be done that way.
Now, you devote a whole chapter to the concept of socialized medicine. Do you think that can really work in the United States?
It definitely can work in the United States. There are 16 countries that still have AAA credit ratings. Every one of them has socialized medicine, and not one country that has ever adopted socialized medicine has ever backtracked. Now, the key in the United States is, believe it or not, physician's assistants. A lot of my friends from Canada who snowbird in California talk about how people come down to the States for elective surgeries like having hip replacements and knee replacements because the Canadian surgeons are overworked. There are only 369 physician's assistants in Canada. It's a brand new thing, whereas in the United States there are over 90,000. And these people can do about 90%, 75 to 90% of what a surgeon does. So I think it can work. The problem is the insurance companies, which are motivated by profits, and the American trial lawyers who are interested in getting multi-million-dollar malpractice awards. If you regulate malpractice awards and you eliminate the profit-making of the insurance companies, yes, it definitely can work.
In your opinion, who should buy this book?
I think all Americans who are concerned about their futures should take a look at this book. It's easy to read. You don't need sophistication and a lot of knowledge. I think if anything, you'll learn a little bit about financial planning that a lot of financial planners don't tell you. A lot of planners only want you to take an interest in planning so that they can sell mutual funds. I don't work that way. I explain how inflation really works. I explain why, in spite of mortgage interest deductibility, the first thing that everybody should do is pay for their home as quickly as possible. And I show you that you don't really need to have untold amounts of money to live comfortably at the end of the day. The other thing is that the book is interactive. Every one of my proposals is converted into a question, and the questions are all repeated on my website, which is www.enlightencapitalism.us, and people can take a survey, see the results at any time, and also comment and dialogue with other people. And I'm hoping out of this book to build a following where there can be a general consensus on what must be done in this country.
Time is getting very short, so the most important question, where can we buy this book?
The book is available as a trade paperback through the normal methods of buying, through Amazon and Barnes & Noble. Create Space, they have a website and they can deliver it. They actually did the publishing. And it's available in all forms of ebooks. Everybody who manufactures an ebook reader will also sell that book as part of their catalog.
Could you spell your name for us, please?
My last name is Zimmer, Zimmer.
Well, it's been just great. Our guest today has been Henry Zimmer, and he is the author of the Enlightened Capitalism Manifesto. Henry, thanks very much for being with us today.
My pleasure, Don.
Don McCauley wrapping up another edition of The Author Show. If you're an author and would like to be a guest on the show, visit www.theauthorshow.com, fill out the form, and we may be contacting you shortly. To learn about how you can participate in the 50 Great Writers You Should Be Reading contest, visit our awards site at 50greatwritersyoushouldbereading.com. To receive book marketing tips, articles, and to learn about author book marketing success stories, sign up for our free monthly newsletter at theauthorshownewsletter.com. And for even more tips, visit Book Marketing, the Author's Marketing Powerhouse at www.theauthorshownow.com. www.theauthorsmarketingpowerhouse.com. We look forward to seeing you here next time on The Author Show.
Thanks for listening to The Author Show. To contact us, call toll-free 1-877-955-8800. That's 877-955-8800. Or visit theauthorshow.com. That's theauthorshow.com. Tune in next time to another great author on The Author Show.